Marcus Chen stood in the frozen food section of the grocery store, staring at a box of pizza without really seeing it. His mind was somewhere else, like it always was these days. 3 years had passed since the accident, but time had not made things easier. If anything, the days felt heavier now than they did in the beginning. He reached for the pizza with his right hand. The scars were still visible on his fingers and palm, pink and shiny against his skin. The doctors had done a good job with the burns, they told him. He should be grateful, they said. His hands could have been so much worse. But Marcus did not feel grateful. Every time he looked at his hands, he remembered that night. He remembered the twisted metal. He remembered the flames. He remembered pulling and pulling until someone dragged him away, telling him it was too late. Marcus? Marcus Chen? The voice pulled him back to the present. He turned to see Mrs. Patterson, the director of the community center on Maple Street. She was a short woman with gray hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. She was smiling now, but there was something worried in her expression too. "Hello, Mrs. Patterson," Marcus said quietly. He put the pizza in his cart and tried to smile back. "I'm so glad I ran into you," she said, moving closer. She held a basket with just a few items in it. "I've been meaning to call you, but I kept putting it off. You know how it is, things get busy and then you forget." Marcus nodded. He did not know what else to say. Small talk had become hard for him. Everything felt like an effort, like he was moving through water all the time. "I need to ask you something," Mrs. Patterson continued. She looked nervous now, fidgeting with the handle of her basket. "And please feel free to say no. I'll understand completely. I know things have been difficult for you." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He knew what was coming. People in town knew about his past. They knew he used to be someone important, someone who played piano in big concert halls in Europe. They knew about the accident, too. Everyone knew everything in a small town. "We're having our annual charity fundraiser in 2 weeks," Mrs. Patterson said. The words came out in a rush, like she wanted to say them quickly before she lost her courage. "It's for the children's hospital, like every year. We usually have someone play background music during dinner, just something soft and pleasant while people eat and talk. Our usual pianist moved away last month, and I'm in a real bind. I was wondering if you might consider helping us out." Marcus felt his stomach drop. His hands, the ones holding the shopping cart, went cold. He had not played piano in 3 years. Not since that night. Not since Emma died. "I don't play anymore," he said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. I know," Mrs. Patterson said quickly. "And I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. But it's nothing complicated, Marcus. Just simple tunes, easy pieces. Background music. No one would even be paying much attention. They'll all be eating and chatting. You'd just be filling the silence, that's all." Marcus shook his head. "I can't. My hands, they don't work the same way anymore. The burns, they made things stiff. And I haven't practiced in years. I wouldn't be any good." This was true, but it was not the whole truth. The real truth was that Marcus could not bear to touch a piano. The last time he had played was the night of the accident. He and Sarah had been driving home from a recital. Emma had been in the back seat, still in her little dress, chattering about the music. She had loved watching him play. She always said she wanted to play piano just like Daddy when she grew up. Marcus pushed the memory away. It hurt too much. "I understand," Mrs. Patterson said softly. Her eyes were sympathetic, and that made it worse somehow. Marcus hated pity. "I shouldn't have asked. It was insensitive of me." "It's fine," Marcus said, even though it was not fine. Nothing was fine. Mrs. Patterson started to turn away, but then she stopped. She looked at him with those kind, crinkled eyes, and Marcus saw something there that reminded him painfully of Emma. His daughter had looked at him the same way sometimes, with a mixture of hope and trust that made his heart ache. "The money we raise goes to the pediatric wing," Mrs. Patterson said quietly. "They use it for things insurance doesn't cover. Art therapy, music therapy, playrooms, things that help sick children feel a little bit normal, even when they're scared and hurting. Last year we raised enough to buy new instruments for their music therapy program." She paused, and Marcus knew she was thinking about Emma. Everyone in town knew that Emma had spent her last hours in that pediatric wing. The doctors and nurses had been kind. They had done everything they could, but some things could not be fixed. "I'll think about it," Marcus heard himself say. The words surprised him as much as they seemed to surprise Mrs. Patterson. Her face lit up. "Really?" "Oh, Marcus, that would be wonderful. Even if you decide you can't do it, thank you for considering it." The event is 2 weeks from Saturday at 6 in the evening. I'll call you in a few days to see what you've decided. No pressure, I promise. She squeezed his arm gently and then walked away, leaving Marcus standing alone in the frozen food aisle with his pizza and his scattered thoughts. That evening, Marcus sat at the dinner table with Sarah, his wife. She had made pasta, his favorite, but he pushed it around his plate without much appetite. Sarah watched him with concern. She had gotten good at reading his moods over the past 3 years. They had both learned to navigate their grief in different ways, sometimes together, sometimes apart. "You're quiet tonight," Sarah said. "More than usual." Marcus looked up at her. Sarah had always been beautiful, with her dark hair and warm brown eyes, but grief had changed her face. There were lines now that had not been there before. Her smile, when it came, seemed to take more effort. "I ran into Mrs. Patterson at the store," Marcus said. Sarah raised her eyebrows. "Oh?" She asked me to play piano at the charity fundraiser. "For the Children's Hospital." Sarah's expression shifted, a complicated mixture of emotions crossing her face. Surprise, worry, something that might have been hope. "What did you say?" she asked carefully. "I told her I'd think about it." Sarah set down her fork. "Do you want to do it?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "Part of me wants to say no immediately. The idea of playing again, of touching a piano, it makes me feel sick. But another part of me keeps thinking about what she said, about the money going to help sick kids, about the music therapy program." Emma had loved music therapy during her hospital stays. There had been a kind woman with a guitar who came to her room and sang songs. Emma had always perked up when she arrived, even on the hardest days. "You don't have to decide right now," Sarah said gently. "You have 2 weeks. I haven't played in 3 years, Marcus said. And even if I wanted to try, I don't know if my hands would cooperate. The scars, the stiffness, everything feels different now." Sarah reached across the table and took his scarred hand in hers. She did this sometimes, touching his scars like they were precious instead of ugly. It was one of the many small ways she showed him that she still loved him, even though he felt broken and useless most days. "Your hands pulled our daughter from a burning car," Sarah said quietly. "They tried to save her life. There's no shame in what they look like now. And if they can't play piano anymore, that's okay too. You don't owe anyone anything, Marcus. Not Mrs. Patterson, not the community center, not anyone." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. He blinked them back. "I just feel so lost," he whispered. "I used to know who I was. I was a pianist. I was Emma's father. Now I'm just a guy who processes numbers in a cubicle and tries not to think too much." "You're still Emma's father," Sarah said firmly. "That never changes. She's not here, but you're still her dad." They sat in silence for a while, holding hands across the dinner table. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Emma had loved sunsets. She used to press her nose against the car window and announce the colors, her voice filled with wonder. Later that night, Marcus found himself standing at the top of the basement stairs. He had not gone down there in 3 years, not really. Sometimes he went down to check the water heater or get something from storage. But he never looked at the far corner where the piano sat. Sarah had covered it with a sheet after the accident. Neither of them had suggested getting rid of it. That felt too final, like giving up completely. Marcus flipped the light switch and slowly descended the stairs. His heart was beating faster than normal. This was stupid, he told himself. It was just a piano, just an object. But it did not feel like just an object. It felt like a ghost, like a piece of his old life that did not fit into his new one. He walked across the basement floor, his footsteps echoing slightly. The piano sat in the corner, covered in its white sheet like a shroud. Dust had gathered on top of it. Marcus could see his own handprints in the dust from the last time he had moved boxes nearby. He stood there for a long time, just looking at it. He did not pull off the sheet. He was not ready for that yet. But he stayed there, breathing slowly, letting himself remember. He remembered buying this piano. It had been a gift from his parents when he and Sarah got married. A Steinway grand, beautiful and expensive. His parents had saved for years to buy it. "Every great pianist needs a great instrument," his father had said at the wedding reception. Marcus had cried then, overwhelmed by their generosity. He remembered the first time Emma had touched the keys. She had been 3 years old, barely tall enough to reach. She had pressed down on middle C with one chubby finger, and her whole face had lit up with amazement at the sound. "Magic," she had whispered. He remembered teaching her simple songs. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Mary had a little lamb. She had been a natural, picking up melodies quickly, her small fingers surprisingly coordinated. She had wanted to play real music like Daddy, not just children's songs, so he had started teaching her easier classical pieces, watching with pride as she concentrated hard on each note. He remembered the last time he played, the night of the accident. He had performed Chopin at a recital in the city 2 hours away. Emma and Sarah had driven up to watch. Emma had worn her favorite blue dress. She had sat in the front row and watched him with those big, adoring eyes. Afterward, she had run up to him and thrown her arms around his waist. "That was the most beautiful thing I ever heard," she had said. On the drive home, she had fallen asleep in the back seat. The roads had been dark and winding. Marcus had been tired from the performance. He never saw the other car until it was too late. The drunk driver had crossed the center line. Marcus had swerved, but not fast enough. He pushed the memories away. His chest felt tight and his eyes burned. This was why he did not come down here. This was why he did not play anymore. The piano was connected to too much pain, but as he turned to go back upstairs, he found himself pausing. Mrs. Patterson's words echoed in his mind. Music therapy, helping sick children. The money they raised went to make things better for kids who were scared and hurting. Emma would have wanted him to help. She had been the kind of child who cared about others, who shared her toys and hugged kids who were sad. She would have loved the idea of music helping sick children feel better. Marcus took a deep breath. He did not pull the sheet off the piano, but he did not leave either. He stood there in the quiet basement with his scarred hands and his broken heart, and he let himself consider the possibility. Maybe, just maybe. He could try. Upstairs, Sarah had turned off most of the lights. She was probably getting ready for bed. Marcus took one last look at the covered piano, then walked back up the stairs. He did not know yet what his answer would be, but for the first time in 3 years he was thinking about playing music again. And that, he supposed, was something. 3 days had passed since Marcus ran into Mrs. Patterson at the grocery store. 3 days of thinking, worrying, and trying to decide what to do. He had told Sarah he would think about it, and he had told Mrs. Patterson the same thing. But thinking was all he had done. He had not made a decision yet. Work had been a good distraction. Marcus spent his days in a small cubicle at Henderson Accounting, processing tax returns and balancing spreadsheets. It was boring work. Nothing like the excitement and passion of performing piano, but it was safe. Numbers did not hurt. Numbers did not remind him of everything he had lost. He could hide behind his computer screen and pretend to be normal for 8 hours a day. But today was Saturday, and there was no work to hide behind. Sarah had gone to visit her sister in the next town over. She had asked Marcus if he wanted to come, but he had said no. He needed time alone, he told her. Time to think. Now the house felt too quiet. Too empty. Marcus wandered from room to room, unable to settle. He made coffee but forgot to drink it. He turned on the television but could not focus on what was playing. His mind kept drifting back to the same thing. The piano, the fundraiser, the choice he had to make. Finally, around noon, Marcus found himself standing at the top of the basement stairs again. His heart was pounding like he was about to do something dangerous. In a way, maybe he was. Going down there, confronting the piano, it felt like opening a door he had kept locked for good reasons. But he was tired of being scared. Tired of avoiding things. Tired of living like a ghost in his own life. Marcus flipped on the light and walked down the stairs. Each step felt heavy, like his feet did not want to go. But he kept moving until he stood in front of the covered piano. The sheet was still in place, still dusty. Everything was exactly as it had been 3 days ago. His hands were shaking as he reached for the corner of the sheet. He paused, taking deep breaths. It was just a piano, he told himself. Just an instrument. Just wood and strings and keys. But his body did not believe that. His body knew it was so much more. Marcus pulled the sheet off in one quick motion, like ripping off a bandage. The dust flew up, making him cough. When the air cleared, he stood staring at the Steinway grand piano that had been hidden for 3 years. It was beautiful. Even covered in dust, it was beautiful. The black lacquer finish, the elegant curves, the ivory and ebony keys. Marcus had forgotten how lovely it was, how much care his parents had taken in choosing it. How many hours he had spent sitting on that bench, practicing and performing and teaching his daughter. He reached out and touched the closed lid. The wood was cool and smooth under his fingers. He felt a lump form in his throat. So many memories were attached to this instrument. Good memories and terrible ones all mixed together until he could not separate them anymore. Marcus walked around the piano slowly, looking at it from all angles. There was a small scratch on one side where Emma had accidentally hit it with a toy when she was 4. There was a water ring on top from the time he had left a glass sitting too long. These imperfections made it real, made it theirs. He sat down on the bench. It creaked slightly under his weight. The bench was exactly the right height, adjusted perfectly for him. He had sat here thousands of times before. His body remembered. Marcus lifted the lid that covered the keys. It moved smoothly, well-made and balanced. The keys stared up at him, black and white, waiting. He had not touched piano keys in 3 years, not once. He had been too afraid. His hands hovered over the keys. They were shaking badly now. The scars on his right hand seemed to throb, though he knew that was just his imagination. The doctors had told him the nerve damage was minimal. The stiffness would improve with exercise, they said, but he had never tried to exercise them. He had just let them heal and then left them alone. Marcus lowered his hands until his fingers rested on the keys. They felt familiar and foreign at the same time. He knew exactly where each note was without looking. Middle C under his right thumb. The muscle memory was still there, buried under 3 years of neglect. But when he tried to press down to make a sound, his fingers would not cooperate. They felt stiff and clumsy. He managed to play a single note, a middle C, and the sound rang out in the quiet basement. It was out of tune, sharp and not quite right, but it was still a piano sound, still music. Marcus tried to play a scale, the most basic exercise any pianist knew. C major, just 8 notes going up. His fingers stumbled over the keys. Some notes did not sound at all because he could not press hard enough. Others were too loud, too harsh. His hand cramped after just a few notes. He stopped and stared at his hands. They looked useless, broken. How had he ever thought he could do this? How had he ever thought he could play at the fundraiser? Mrs. Patterson wanted background music, pleasant and soft. What he had just produced was neither pleasant nor soft. It was painful to hear. Marcus felt frustration building inside him. He tried the scale again. Same result. Clumsy, uneven, wrong. He tried a third time, pushing through the cramping in his hand. Still terrible. "This is stupid," he said out loud to the empty basement. "I can't do this. He should get up, walk away. Call Mrs. Patterson and tell her he could not help. Find someone else." This was a mistake, but he did not get up. Something kept him sitting on that bench staring at the keys. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was the memory of Emma watching him play with such pride and joy. Maybe it was just that he was tired of being defeated by everything. Marcus tried again. This time he started slower, pressing each key with deliberate care. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Say the notes were still uneven, still out of tune, but they were recognizable as a scale. Progress, small, but real. He played it again. And again. Each time his fingers moved a little more smoothly. The cramping eased slightly. It was still nowhere near what he used to be able to do, but it was better than the first attempt. Marcus lost track of time. He played scales over and over. C major, G major, D major. The simple exercises he used to warm up with before concerts. His fingers complained and his hand ached, but he kept going. He was surprised to find that underneath the frustration, there was something else. A tiny spark of something that might have been satisfaction, or maybe just relief that he could do it at all. After what might have been an hour, Marcus stopped. His hands were tired and sore, but they had worked. Not well, not like they used to, but they had worked. He flexed his fingers, looking at the scars. Maybe the doctors had been right. Maybe exercise would help. He stood up from the bench, his back stiff from sitting. He needed to think. Mrs. Patterson wanted him to play simple tunes, background music. Could he do that? The scales had been rough but possible. What about actual songs? Marcus sat back down. He tried to think of the simplest piece he knew. Für Elise by Beethoven. Everyone knew it. Every piano student learned it. It was not complicated, just a simple, pretty melody. His fingers found the opening notes. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The famous beginning that everyone recognized. But his hands stumbled over even this easy passage. The rhythm was wrong. The notes blurred together. He stopped and tried again. Better, but still not good. Marcus kept trying. The frustration came back, stronger now. This should be easy. He had played Für Elise when he was 8 years old. He had played Chopin and Rachmaninoff and Liszt in concert halls. How could he not manage this simple piece? But his hands did not care about what he used to be able to do. They only cared about what they could do now, which was not much. He was about to give up when he heard a sound from upstairs. The front door opening and closing. Sarah's voice calling out, "Marcus, I'm home." Marcus froze. He had not told Sarah he was going to try playing. He had not told her anything. Would she be upset, worried? He was not sure how he felt about it himself, let alone how to explain it to her. "I'm down here," he called back. His voice sounded strange, hoarse from not speaking for hours. He heard her footsteps crossing the floor above him, then coming down the stairs. Sarah appeared at the bottom of the steps, still wearing her coat. Her eyes widened when she saw the piano uncovered and Marcus sitting on the bench. "You're playing," she said softly. It was not a question. "Trying to," Marcus corrected. "Not very successfully." Sarah walked over slowly, like she was approaching a scared animal. She looked at the piano, then at Marcus, then at his hands resting on the keys. Her expression was complicated, full of emotions Marcus could not quite read. "How long have you been down here?" she asked. Marcus shrugged. "I don't know. A few hours maybe. Did you decide about the fundraiser?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "I wanted to see if I even could play anymore." The answer seems to be barely. "My hands don't work right. Everything sounds terrible." Sarah sat down on the bench beside him. It was a tight fit, but they managed. She had done this before, years ago, sitting beside him while he practiced or taught Emma. The memory was bittersweet. "Play something for me," Sarah said. "I just told you. I can't play anymore. It all sounds awful. I don't care how it sounds. Play something anyway." Marcus hesitated. Then he tried Für Elise again. His fingers stumbled through the opening, missing notes and losing the rhythm. He stopped halfway through, embarrassed. "See? Terrible." But Sarah was not looking at his hands. She was looking at his face. "You were concentrating," she said. "Really concentrating. I haven't seen that look on your face in 3 years." "What look?" "Like you care about something. Like something matters." Marcus did not know what to say to that. Was it true? Had he been just going through the motions for 3 years, not really caring about anything? Maybe. Probably. "I don't think I can do the fundraiser," he said quietly. "I'm not good enough. It would be embarrassing." "What were they asking you to play?" Sarah asked. "Simple tunes. Background music. Nothing complicated. So play simple tunes. Play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Play Mary Had a Little Lamb. Play the easy stuff." Marcus shook his head. "Those are children's songs. So? You're playing background music at a dinner. No one is there to watch you perform. They just want pleasant sounds while they eat. Children's songs are pleasant." Marcus had not thought of it that way. He had been thinking of it like a performance, like people would be listening and judging. But Mrs. Patterson had said it would just be background noise. Maybe children's songs would be fine. Maybe even better than trying to play classical pieces he could no longer manage. "I used to play those songs for Emma," Marcus said. His voice cracked on her name. Sarah took his scarred hand in hers. "I know, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe playing them again would help." Not hurt. Marcus was not sure about that. Everything about Emma hurt still. But maybe Sarah was right. Maybe trying to avoid the pain forever was not helping either. "Will you stay down here with me while I practice?" Marcus asked. He felt vulnerable asking, like a child needing comfort. Sarah smiled and squeezed his hand. Of course, so Marcus tried again. This time he played Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, the song he had taught Emma when she was 4 years old. His hand still stumbled, still made mistakes, but it was recognizable. He could do this. Maybe. Sarah sat beside him and did not say anything. She just stayed there, a quiet presence, while Marcus played the simple song over and over. Outside, the afternoon light began to fade. Inside the basement, beside the piano that had been silent for 3 years, Marcus started to remember what it felt like to make music. It was not beautiful. It was not even particularly good, but it was something. And something, Marcus thought, was better than the nothing he had been living with. That evening, after dinner, Marcus called Mrs. Patterson. His hands were shaking as he dialed her number. Sarah sat nearby, offering silent support. "Hello?" Mrs. Patterson's voice was warm and friendly. "Hi, Mrs. Patterson, it's Marcus Chen." "Marcus, how wonderful to hear from you. Have you made a decision about the fundraiser?" Marcus took a deep breath. Yes, I'll do it. But I need to be honest with you. I haven't played in 3 years and I'm very rusty. I can't play complicated pieces, just simple tunes. If that's not good enough, I understand. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Mrs. Patterson said, Marcus, simple tunes are exactly what we need. You're doing us a huge favor. Thank you so much. After he hung up, Marcus felt a mixture of relief and terror. He had said yes. He had committed to this. Now he actually had to do it. Sarah hugged him tight. I'm proud of you, she whispered. Marcus held on to her and hoped he had made the right choice. The fundraiser was less than 2 weeks away. He had a lot of practicing to do. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of nervousness and practice. Marcus found himself doing something he had not done in 3 years, going down to the basement every evening after work and sitting at the piano. The first few days were hard. His fingers hurt, his hands cramped, and he made so many mistakes that he wanted to quit a dozen times. But Sarah was there. Every evening, she would come down and sit in an old chair in the corner, knitting or reading while he practiced. She never pushed him or criticized him. She just stayed there, a quiet reminder that he was not alone in this. Marcus started with the simplest songs he could remember. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, Mary had a little lamb. Row, row, row your boat. Songs he had taught Emma. Songs that made his heart ache every time he played them. But Sarah had been right. Playing them did not just hurt. It also brought back good memories. Emma's delighted laugh when she got a song right. Her serious little face when she concentrated. The way she would clap after each performance, no matter how simple the song. After a few days, Marcus's fingers started to loosen up. The cramping happened less often. The stiffness eased. His hands remembered more than he thought they would. They knew where to go, even if they got there clumsily. He added more songs to his repertoire. Ode to Joy, the simple version, a simplified version of Canon in D. Some basic Christmas carols, even though Christmas was months away. Anything that was easy and pleasant and would work as background music. The piano was badly out of tune. Marcus could hear it, and it bothered him. 3 years of sitting untouched had not been kind to the instrument. But there was no time to call a piano tuner before the fundraiser. He would have to make do with how it sounded. 1 week before the event, Marcus had a bad day. He came home from work tired and frustrated. Someone at the office had made a mistake on a tax return, and Marcus had spent hours fixing it. He was in a bad mood, the kind where everything felt wrong and hopeless. He went down to the basement to practice anyway. Sarah was visiting a friend, so he was alone. He sat at the piano and tried to play, but nothing sounded right. His fingers hit wrong notes. His timing was off. Even the simple songs sounded terrible. Marcus felt the frustration building until it boiled over. He slammed his hands down on the keys, creating an ugly clash of sound. I can't do this, he said to the empty room. What was I thinking? I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to embarrass Mrs. Patterson. I should never have said yes. He put his head in his hands, feeling defeated. Maybe he should call Mrs. Patterson right now and cancel. Tell her he was sick. Tell her his hands hurt too much. Make up some excuse. It would be better than showing up and playing badly in front of 300 people. But even as he thought it, Marcus knew he would not cancel. He had given his word. And more than that, somewhere deep inside, part of him wanted to do this. Wanted to prove to himself that he could still make music, even if it was not the music he used to make. Marcus took a deep breath and started again. This time he played more slowly, focusing on each note. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, the song Emma had loved best. He imagined her sitting beside him, her small hands trying to copy his movements. He imagined her voice singing along, slightly off-key but full of joy. The song sounded better. Not perfect, but better. Marcus played it again and then again. By the time Sarah came home, he was feeling calmer. Not confident exactly, but less panicked. How did practice go? Sarah asked as they ate a late dinner. Rocky, Marcus admitted. I had a moment where I almost called it off. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Sarah smiled at him. You're braver than you think you are. Marcus was not sure about that, but he kept practicing. 3 days before the fundraiser, Marcus realized he should probably see the actual piano he would be playing. He called Mrs. Patterson and asked if he could visit the community center to try it out. Of course, she said warmly. Come by any time. We're here preparing for the event anyway. It would be wonderful to see you. The next afternoon, Marcus drove to the community center on Maple Street. It was a building he knew well. He and Sarah used to bring Emma here for swimming lessons. There was a pool in the back, and Emma had loved splashing around with the other kids. Marcus pushed the memories aside and walked in through the main doors. The lobby was decorated with posters advertising the fundraiser. There were photos of children from the hospital, smiling despite their illnesses. Reading about them made Marcus's chest tight. These were kids like Emma had been. Kids who needed help. Mrs. Patterson appeared from a side hallway, her face lighting up when she saw him. Marcus, thank you so much for coming early. The piano is in the main hall. Follow me. She led him through the building, chattering about the preparations. They were expecting 300 people. The food was being catered by a local restaurant. There would be a silent auction and a raffle. Last year they had raised $15,000. This year they hoped to raise $20,000. Every bit helps, Mrs. Patterson said as they entered the main hall. The hospital is always in need of funding for the pediatric wing. Insurance covers medical care, but it doesn't cover the things that make kids feel human. Art supplies, music instruments, books, toys. Those things matter too. The main hall was large with round tables set up for dinner. At one end was a small stage with a microphone and podium. In the corner, away from the stage, sat an upright piano. Marcus walked over to it slowly. It was old but well-maintained with a dark wood finish. Not a Steinway grand like his piano at home, but respectable. He sat down on the bench and lifted the lid to expose the keys. It's nothing fancy, Mrs. Patterson said apologetically, but it's in tune. We had someone come last week to tune it. Marcus placed his hands on the keys and played a few notes. The tone was decent, much better than his out-of-tune piano at home. The keys were a bit stiffer than he was used to, but not terrible. He could work with this. He played through Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and it sounded reasonable. The acoustics in the hall were good. The sound carried, but not too loudly. It would work fine for background music. That sounds lovely, Mrs. Patterson said. She had tears in her eyes. I'm so grateful you agreed to do this, Marcus. I know it's not easy for you. Marcus did not know what to say, so he just nodded and kept playing. He tried a few more songs, getting a feel for the instrument. It was strange playing a piano that was not his own, but also freeing somehow. This piano did not have memories attached to it. It was just an instrument, nothing more. After about 20 minutes, Marcus felt satisfied that he could handle playing this piano. It was not perfect, but nothing was perfect. He thanked Mrs. Patterson and drove home feeling slightly more confident about the whole thing. That evening he practiced at home with more focus. Now that he knew what the actual piano felt like, he could prepare better. Sarah came down to listen, and Marcus played through his entire planned set list. Simple songs, easy melodies, nothing too complicated. It was not the kind of music he used to perform, but it was honest music, real music. It sounds beautiful, Sarah said when he finished. It's just children's songs, Marcus protested. So children's songs can be beautiful too. You're putting feeling into them. That's what matters. Marcus wanted to believe her, but doubt kept creeping in. What if people noticed how much worse he was than he used to be? What if they whispered about how far he had fallen? The great Marcus Chen, reduced to playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. The night before the fundraiser, Marcus could not sleep. He lay in bed next to Sarah, staring at the ceiling and worrying. His mind ran through everything that could go wrong. He could forget the songs. His hands could freeze up. He could have a panic attack in front of everyone. Around 2 a.m, Sarah rolled over and put her arm across his chest. You're thinking too loud, she murmured sleepily. Stop worrying. How do you know I'm worrying? Because I can feel the tension in your body. And I know you. You always worry before a performance, and this isn't a performance. It's background music. Tell that to your nervous system. Marcus sighed. She was right. His body felt like he was about to walk onto a stage at Carnegie Hall, not play simple tunes at a community center dinner. What if I mess up? Marcus whispered. Sarah propped herself up on one elbow and looked at him in the darkness. Then you mess up, and people keep eating their dinner and talking to their friends and not really noticing, because this isn't about you being perfect, Marcus. It's about you helping raise money for sick kids. It's about you making music again after 3 years of silence. That's already a success no matter what happens tomorrow. Marcus reached up and touched her face. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just weren't paying attention." He pulled her close and held her. They lay together in the darkness, and slowly Marcus felt his body starting to relax. Sarah was right. This was not about being perfect. This was about showing up, about trying, about doing something good even if he was scared. He must have fallen asleep eventually because the next thing he knew, sunlight was streaming through the bedroom window and Sarah was shaking him gently awake. "It's 11 o'clock, she said. "You slept late?" "That's good." "You needed the rest." Marcus sat up, feeling groggy. The fundraiser was at 6 that evening. He had 7 hours to get through. 7 hours of nervousness and second-guessing himself. Sarah had other plans. "We're going out," she announced. "I'm not letting you sit around the house all day working yourself into a panic. We're going to have lunch at that cafe you like, and then we're going to take a walk in the park. Normal Saturday things. No thinking about tonight." Marcus knew she was trying to distract him, but he appreciated it. They got dressed and went to lunch. The cafe was busy, full of families and couples enjoying the weekend. Marcus ordered a sandwich but could barely eat it. His stomach was in knots. After lunch, they walked through the park. It was a beautiful day, warm and sunny with a light breeze. Kids were playing on the playground. Dogs were chasing frisbees. Life was happening all around them, normal and ordinary and good. Marcus thought about Emma. She had loved this park. They used to bring her here every weekend. She would run from the swings to the slide to the monkey bars, never stopping, always in motion. Sarah would pack snacks and they would have picnics on the grass. "I miss her," Marcus said suddenly. They had stopped to sit on a bench overlooking the playground. "I miss her too," Sarah said, taking his hand. "Every single day. She would have liked knowing that I'm playing tonight. She always wanted me to play more. She would be so proud of you." Marcus hoped that was true. He hoped that wherever Emma was, if she could somehow see him, she would understand why he had stopped playing and why he was starting again. He hoped she would forgive him for all the time he had wasted being afraid. They stayed in the park until 4 o'clock. Then Sarah drove them home so Marcus could shower and change into nicer clothes. He put on the suit he wore for important occasions, dark blue with a white shirt. Sarah wore a simple black dress. They looked in the mirror together, and for a moment, Marcus could see the people they used to be. Before the accident, before the grief. "Ready?" Sarah asked. Marcus took a deep breath. "No, but let's go anyway." They arrived at the community center at 5:30, half an hour before the event was supposed to start. Mrs. Patterson greeted them at the door, looking stressed but happy. The hall was set up beautifully with white tablecloths and flowers on each table. People were already arriving, dressed nicely and chatting with excitement. Marcus made his way to the piano in the corner. His hands were shaking as he sat down on the bench. Sarah gave him an encouraging smile from a nearby table where she had taken a seat. Mrs. Patterson had made sure Sarah had a good spot where she could see Marcus. The hall filled up quickly. By 6 o'clock, almost every seat was taken. The noise level rose as people greeted friends and found their tables. Servers began bringing out salads. Mrs. Patterson stepped up to the microphone and welcomed everyone, thanking them for coming and explaining how the funds would be used. Then she said, "We're fortunate to have Marcus Chen providing piano music for us this evening. Please enjoy your dinner and the beautiful sounds." All eyes turned to Marcus for a brief moment. He felt his face flush hot. Then Mrs. Patterson started talking about the silent auction items, and attention moved away from him. It was time to play. Marcus placed his trembling hands on the keys. He took one deep breath, then another. He thought about Emma. He thought about the sick kids in the hospital who needed help. He thought about Sarah sitting nearby, believing in him. Then he began to play. The first notes came out shaky. Marcus started with "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," the safest choice he could think of. His fingers found the keys, but they felt stiff and nervous. The melody was recognizable but not smooth. He missed a note in the second line and had to recover quickly. No one seemed to notice. People were focused on their salads and their conversations. Servers moved between tables with drinks. The clinking of silverware and the buzz of voices filled the hall. Marcus was just background noise, exactly as Mrs. Patterson had promised. He finished the song and moved into the next one without pausing. "Mary Had a Little Lamb." This one went better. His hands were starting to warm up, the nervousness easing slightly. He played it twice through, then transitioned into "Row, Row, Row Your Boat." Marcus settled into a rhythm. Play a song, repeat it once or twice, move to the next one. Keep the music simple and pleasant. Don't draw attention. Just create a soft backdrop for the dinner. His hands were cooperating better than he had feared. The practice had helped. The songs were so simple that even with mistakes, they still sounded decent. And the truth was, almost no one was listening closely. This was not a concert. This was dinner music. After about 15 minutes, Marcus started to relax. His shoulders came down from where they had been hunched near his ears. His breathing became more natural. He could do this. It was going to be okay. He played through his list of simple songs. Ode to Joy, Amazing Grace, a basic version of Canon in D. He repeated songs when he ran out of new ones. It did not matter. The purpose was just to fill the silence, and he was doing that. Sarah caught his eye from across the room and smiled. She looked proud and relieved. Marcus felt a small surge of confidence. He had not embarrassed himself. He had not frozen up or panicked. He was actually doing it. The main course was being served now. Chicken and vegetables from what Marcus could see. The smell of food filled the hall, making his empty stomach growl. He had been too nervous to eat much that day. But he kept playing, focusing on the keys and the simple melodies. About 45 minutes into the dinner, something changed. Marcus had played through his list of songs multiple times. He was starting to feel bored, mechanical. His hands were moving, but his heart was not in it anymore. He was just going through the motions, playing notes because he had to, not because he wanted to. He finished Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star for probably the 5th time, and paused. His hands rested on the keys. What should he play next? More of the same? Another round of children's songs that meant nothing? Marcus looked around the room. People were eating and talking and laughing. At one table near the front, he noticed a family with a young girl. She looked to be about 7 or 8 years old. She was thin and pale, with a scarf wrapped around her head. Cancer, Marcus guessed. The girl was picking at her food, not eating much, but she was smiling at something her father was saying. At another table, an elderly couple sat holding hands. The woman had tears on her cheeks, but she was smiling too. They were looking at photos on a phone, probably of a grandchild who was sick. These people had come here tonight to help children who were suffering. They had paid for tickets and bid on auction items, and given their money to make things better for kids in pain. They understood loss. They understood fear. They understood what it meant to love someone who was hurting. Marcus thought about Emma. Not the memory of her in the hospital, which still made his chest tight with panic, but the memory of her at the piano, her small hands reaching for the keys, her face lighting up with joy when she got a song right. He had written a song for her once. A lullaby. When she was first born, during those long nights when she would not sleep, Marcus had sat at the piano and composed a simple melody. He had hummed it to her while rocking her, and eventually it became their song. He would play it for her at bedtime. She would hum it to herself when she was scared or sad. Marcus had never performed that lullaby for anyone else. It had been private, just for Emma, just for their family. He had never even written it down. It existed only in his memory and his heart. His hands found the opening notes before his brain fully decided to play it. Soft and gentle like a whisper, the lullaby he had not played in 3 years. The song that was Emma's. The melody filled the hall, different from everything else he had played that evening. It was not a children's song that everyone knew. It was something else, something personal and raw and true. Marcus felt tears start to form in his eyes, but he did not stop playing. His hands remembered every note, every phrase, every feeling he had poured into this song when Emma was alive. The love, the hope, the desperate wish that he could protect her from all harm. But he had not been able to protect her, and that failure lived inside him like a stone in his chest. Playing this song meant facing that pain head-on. It meant remembering everything he had tried so hard to forget. The notes poured out of him. His scarred hands moved across the keys with a fluidity they had not shown all evening. The stiffness was gone. The nervousness was gone. There was only the music and the memory and the grief he had been carrying for 3 years. Marcus did not notice at first, but the room was growing quieter. Conversations were trailing off. Forks were being set down. People were turning to look at the corner where he sat. The lullaby built to its gentle climax, the part where Marcus always imagined Emma drifting off to sleep, safe and loved and whole. Then it descended back down to the soft ending, like a sigh, like a goodbye. Marcus played the final notes with tears streaming down his face. He could not stop them. He did not try. This was Emma's song, and she deserved his tears. She deserved everything he had. When the last note faded into silence, Marcus sat frozen at the piano. His hands were still on the keys. His chest was heaving with suppressed sobs. He had broken the cardinal rule of background music. He had drawn attention to himself. He had made the music about his own pain instead of staying invisible. He waited for the embarrassment to hit, for the awkward silence that would follow, for the realization that he had made a terrible mistake. But that was not what happened. Instead, someone started to clap. Slowly at first one person, then another, then more. The applause grew until it filled the entire hall. But many people were not clapping. They were wiping their own tears. They were reaching for tissues or their partner's hand. They were sitting in stunned silence, moved by something they could not quite name. Marcus looked up, startled. He saw Sarah standing at her table with tears running down her face. She was not clapping either. She was just looking at him with an expression of such love and pride and shared grief that Marcus felt his heart might break. Mrs. Patterson was crying too, her hands pressed to her mouth. The family with the young cancer patient was holding each other. The father had his arms around his daughter and his wife, all three of them crying quietly. Marcus did not understand what was happening. He had just played a simple lullaby, a sad, personal song that meant something to him but should have meant nothing to anyone else. Why were people reacting this way? But then he realized. They were not crying because of the notes he played. They were crying because they felt it. They felt the love and the loss and the pain. They felt what it meant to watch someone you loved suffer and not be able to fix it. They felt the helplessness and the hope and the desperate wish to turn back time. Everyone in this room was here because they cared about sick children. Which meant everyone in this room understood in some way what loss felt like, what fear felt like, what it meant to love someone who might not be okay. Marcus had given them permission to feel those things. For just a few minutes, his music had said what they all felt but could not put into words. A man stood up from a table near the middle of the room. He was middle-aged, wearing a suit with gray hair and kind eyes. He walked toward Marcus slowly, and the room watched in silence. When he reached the piano, the man said quietly, "Thank you. That was the most beautiful thing I have heard in a long time." His voice cracked. "My son is in the pediatric ICU right now. He's 8 years old. Your music had helped me feel less alone." Marcus did not know what to say. "I'm sorry about your son," he managed. The man nodded and walked back to his table. But he had opened a door. Other people stood up and approached. A woman whose granddaughter had died last year. A father whose daughter was in remission but the fear never left. A young mother whose baby was born with a heart defect. They did not say much. Mostly just "thank you" and "that was beautiful" and "you helped me." Some of them squeezed his shoulder. Some just nodded and walked away. But Marcus understood what they were really saying. They were saying, "I see you. I know your pain. We are in this together." Sarah appeared beside him and put her hand on his shoulder. "That was Emma's song," she said softly. "Yes," Marcus whispered. "I don't know why I played it. It just came out." "I'm glad it did," Mrs. Patterson approached, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Marcus, I don't know what to say. That was extraordinary. I have never seen anything like it. People are so moved." "I'm sorry," Marcus said automatically. "I was supposed to play background music." "That was not background music." "No," Mrs. Patterson agreed. "It was so much more. It was exactly what everyone needed, even though they did not know they needed it." She paused, then said, "Would you mind playing a bit more? Nothing as intense as that, just some gentle music to help people settle. We still have dessert and the auction." Marcus nodded. He could do that. He wiped his eyes and took a deep breath. His hands found the keys again, and he played something simple and sweet. A hymn his mother used to sing. The room slowly returned to its normal noise level, but something had shifted. There was a softness now, a connection between people who had been strangers an hour ago. Marcus played for another 30 minutes as dessert was served, and the silent auction closed. He stuck to simple, pretty songs, nothing too emotional. He was drained from playing Emma's lullaby. That had taken everything out of him. When Mrs. Patterson finally announced it was time for the raffle and closed the music portion of the evening, Marcus stood up from the piano on shaky legs. He felt exhausted, like he had run a marathon, but he also felt something else. Something he had not felt in 3 years. He felt lighter. Sarah took his hand and led him to their table. Someone had saved them plates of food. Marcus discovered he was starving. He ate quickly, barely tasting the food, while Sarah rubbed his back gently. "You did an amazing thing tonight," she said. "I cried in front of 300 people. You were honest in front of 300 people. There's a difference." Marcus thought about that. Maybe she was right. He had not meant to be emotional. He had not meant to play Emma's song, but now that he had, he did not regret it. Something had happened in that moment, something important. The young girl with the scarf, the one Marcus had noticed earlier, walked by their table with her parents. She stopped and looked at Marcus shyly. "I liked your music," she said in a small voice, "especially that one pretty song that made everyone cry. It made me think about my dog who died, but in a good way." Her mother put her hand on the girl's shoulder. "Thank you," she said to Marcus. Her eyes were full of understanding. "We needed that tonight." After they walked away, Marcus sat quietly, processing everything that had happened. He had come here tonight terrified that he would embarrass himself, terrified that his hands would not work, terrified that people would judge him for not being as good as he used to be. But none of that had mattered. What mattered was that he had showed up. He had played, and somehow in playing his daughter's lullaby, he had connected with people who understood loss. He had helped them feel less alone. And in doing that, he had helped himself feel less alone too. The fundraiser ended around 9 o'clock. Mrs. Patterson announced that they had raised $22,000, a record for the event. The crowd cheered. As people filed out, many stopped to thank Marcus again. Some gave him their cards and asked if he gave lessons. Others just shook his hand with tears in their eyes. Marcus and Sarah walked to their car in silence. The night air was cool and fresh. Stars were visible above them, bright and steady. In the car, Sarah asked, "How do you feel?" Marcus thought about it. How did he feel? Tired, emotional, vulnerable, but also something else. "I feel like I remembered something tonight," he said slowly. "I remembered why I loved music in the first place. It was never about being perfect or impressive. It was about connection, about making people feel things. About being human together." Sarah reached over and took his hand. "Emma would be so proud of you." Marcus squeezed her hand and drove them home, his heart fuller than it had been in 3 years. Marcus woke up the next morning feeling different. The heaviness that usually pressed on his chest when he opened his eyes was still there, but it felt lighter somehow, not gone but changed. Like a weight he had carried for so long had shifted to a more bearable position. Sarah was already awake, sitting up in bed with her coffee and reading something on her phone. She looked over when she noticed him stirring. "Good morning," she said softly. "How do you feel?" Marcus sat up and rubbed his face. His hands still felt tired from playing the night before. A good kind of tired. Strange, he admitted. But not bad strange. Just different. Different how? He thought about how to explain it. "I don't know exactly. Like something opened up last night. Something that's been closed for a long time." Sarah set down her phone and coffee. She reached over and brushed hair off his forehead. A gentle gesture that reminded Marcus of how she used to wake Emma in the mornings. "I'm proud of you," Sarah said. "I know how hard last night was for you, but you did it." And it was beautiful. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. He had cried so much in the past 24 hours. It was like a dam had broken inside him, and all the feelings he had been holding back for 3 years were flooding out. "I played Emma's song," he said, his voice rough. "I didn't plan to. It just happened, I know. I could tell the moment you started. Your whole body changed. Was it wrong? To play something so personal in front of all those people?" Sarah shook her head firmly. "No, it was exactly right. Those people needed to hear it. And I think you needed to play it." They sat together in comfortable silence for a while. Outside their window, morning birds were singing. The world was waking up to a new day. Marcus felt like he was waking up too in a way. Like he had been asleep for 3 years and was finally opening his eyes again. After breakfast, Marcus found himself drawn to the basement. Not because he had to practice anymore. The fundraiser was over. His obligation was fulfilled. But he wanted to go down there. He wanted to touch the piano again. Sarah followed him down like she had been doing for the past 2 weeks. She settled into her chair in the corner with her knitting. Marcus sat at the piano and lifted the lid. He did not play Emma's lullaby. That felt too raw still, too fresh. Instead, he played some of the simple songs from the night before. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Mary Had a Little Lamb. But this time he played them differently, with more feeling, more attention, like they mattered. After a while, Marcus tried something new. He played a scale slowly and carefully. Then he tried a slightly more complex piece, something he had played 1,000 times before the accident. A Chopin prelude, one of the easier ones. His hands stumbled over the notes. The muscle memory was there, but rusty. He made mistakes and had to stop and start again. But he kept trying. And with each attempt, it got a little bit better. Sarah looked up from her knitting. "Are you practicing?" "I guess so," Marcus said, surprised by his own answer. "Is that crazy?" "I don't have anywhere to perform. I'm just playing for myself. That's not crazy at all. That's how it should be. Playing because you want to, not because you have to." Marcus thought about that as he continued to practice. For so many years, piano had been his job, his career, something he had to be perfect at. The pressure had been enormous. Every performance was judged. Every mistake was noticed. He had loved it, but it had also been exhausting. Now there was no pressure. No one was listening except Sarah. No one cared if he made mistakes. He could just play for the pure joy of making music. The freedom of that felt revolutionary. Over the next few days, Marcus continued to practice. Not for hours like he used to. Just 30 minutes or an hour in the evenings. Enough to keep his hands loose and his skills from getting too rusty. Enough to feel connected to music again. He started to explore pieces he had never played before. Simple jazz standards, folk songs, movie themes. Things that were just fun and interesting, not necessarily impressive or difficult. Sarah would sit and listen sometimes. Other times she would do her own thing nearby, just keeping him company. Marcus realized how much he had missed this. Not just playing music, but sharing it with someone who loved him, making his home feel alive with sound again. On Wednesday evening, 5 days after the fundraiser, the doorbell rang. Marcus answered it to find a woman he did not recognize standing on his porch. She was in her 30s with kind eyes and a nervous smile. "Mr. Chen," she said, "I'm sorry to bother you at home. My name is Jennifer Walsh. I was at the fundraiser on Saturday." "Oh," Marcus said, not sure what else to say. "Hello. I hope this isn't weird, me showing up like this. Mrs. Patterson gave me your address. I have a son, David. He's 9 years old. He's always wanted to learn piano. But lessons are expensive and we can't really afford them right now. I was wondering if maybe you might consider taking him on as a student. I know you probably don't teach anymore, and I understand if you say no. But after hearing you play on Saturday, I just had to ask." Marcus stood there frozen. A student? He had not taught anyone since Emma died. He had not even thought about teaching. The idea filled him with a complicated mixture of fear and something that might have been interest. "I don't know," Marcus said slowly. "I'm not really teaching these days." Jennifer's face fell. "I understand. I'm sorry for bothering you." "Wait," Marcus said as she started to turn away. Something made him hesitate. "Can I think about it? Maybe meet David first, see if it would be a good fit." Jennifer's face lit up with hope. "Really? That would be wonderful." David would be so excited. They exchanged phone numbers and Jennifer left. Marcus closed the door and leaned against it, his heart racing. What had he just done? He could not teach piano. He barely could play himself anymore. And teaching would mean getting close to a child, investing in them, caring about them. He had sworn after Emma that he would never let himself care like that again. It hurt too much. But when he told Sarah about it over dinner, she gave him a long look. "Do you want to teach this boy?" "I don't know, maybe?" The idea terrifies me. Why? Because what if I'm not good enough anymore? What if I can't do it? What if I care about him and something happens? Sarah reached across the table and took his hand. "Marcus, you can't live your whole life afraid that bad things might happen." Bad things do happen. We know that better than anyone. But good things happen too. And if you never let yourself care about anything again, you're not really living. Marcus knew she was right. He had spent 3 years trying not to care, trying not to feel, trying to protect himself from more pain. But the fundraiser had shown him that feeling things, even painful things, was part of being human. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. The next day, Marcus called Jennifer and asked if she wanted to bring David over on Saturday morning. She agreed immediately, her voice full of gratitude. Saturday came quickly. Marcus was nervous as he waited for them to arrive. He had cleaned the basement and made sure the piano was as in tune as possible. He had prepared some basic materials for a first lesson. But mostly he just felt scared. The doorbell rang at 10 o'clock exactly. Marcus answered it to find Jennifer with a boy who looked small for 9 years old. David had curly dark hair and big brown eyes that looked up at Marcus with a mixture of excitement and shyness. "Hi," David said quietly. "Hi," Marcus replied. "You must be David, I'm Marcus. Come on in." He led them to the basement. Sarah had made cookies and set them out on a small table with juice boxes. David's eyes widened when he saw the grand piano. "Wow," he breathed. "That's the biggest piano I've ever seen." Marcus smiled despite his nervousness. "It is pretty big. Want to try it out?" David nodded eagerly. Marcus showed him how to sit on the bench, how to position his hands where middle C was. The basics. As he taught, something clicked inside him. This felt right. This felt like honoring Emma, not betraying her. She had loved learning piano. She would have wanted other kids to have that same joy. David was a natural. His small fingers found the notes easily. He was patient and focused, really listening to Marcus's instructions. They worked through some simple exercises and David picked them up quickly. After half an hour, Jennifer said they should probably go and not take up too much of Marcus's time. But Marcus found himself not wanting them to leave yet. "What if we did this regularly?" Marcus heard himself say. "Once a week, Saturday mornings. I can't charge much, money is tight for us too right now, but maybe $20 a lesson?" Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "That's so generous." "Are you sure?" Marcus looked at David, who was grinning from ear to ear and felt something warm spread through his chest. "Yes, I'm sure." After they left, Sarah came down to the basement. "How did it go?" "Good," Marcus said, still a bit shocked by his own decision. "Really good. I think I'm going to teach him." "How does that feel?" "Scary, but also right." Sarah hugged him tight. "I'm so proud of you. You're choosing to live again." Over the next few weeks, Marcus's life started to take on a new shape. He still worked at the accounting firm during the week, but his evenings were different now. He practiced piano most nights, not obsessively, but regularly. He was slowly rebuilding his skills, finding his way back to music on his own terms. David came every Saturday morning. He proved to be an excellent student, dedicated and enthusiastic. Marcus found himself looking forward to their lessons. It was hard sometimes watching David's small hands on the keys, remembering Emma. But it was good hard, not bad hard. It was healing instead of hurting. Word spread through the small town. Other parents started calling, asking if Marcus would teach their children too. He said yes to a few more students, carefully limiting how many so he would not get overwhelmed. Soon he had 5 students total, all children between ages 7 and 12. Marcus moved his teaching to the community center, where Mrs. Patterson let him use the upright piano in one of the classrooms for free. She was thrilled to have him there regularly. The community center became his teaching home 2 afternoons a week and Saturday mornings. 3 months after the fundraiser, Marcus got a call from the hospital. They wanted to know if he would be interested in volunteering in the pediatric wing, playing piano for the children who were too sick to leave their rooms. They had heard about his performance at the fundraiser and thought he would be perfect. Marcus's first instinct was to say no. The pediatric wing was where Emma had died. Going back there felt impossible, but Sarah encouraged him to at least visit, to see how he felt. So one Tuesday afternoon, Marcus drove to the hospital. His hands were shaking as he walked through the familiar doors. Everything looked the same but felt different. He was not a desperate father anymore. He was a volunteer, a musician, someone who might be able to help. The volunteer coordinator showed him around. The music therapy room had a piano, donated with funds from last year's fundraiser. There were also guitars and small percussion instruments. The room was bright and cheerful, decorated with paintings made by patients. "We have kids come here when they're feeling well enough," the coordinator explained. "But we also have a keyboard on a cart that you could take room to room for kids who can't get out of bed. Whatever you're comfortable with." Marcus looked at the piano. It was not as nice as his Steinway at home, but it was decent. He sat down and played a few notes. The sound filled the bright room. "I can do this," Marcus said. "When do you want me to start?" He started volunteering one afternoon a week. At first it was hard. Being in the hospital, seeing sick children, it brought back so many memories of Emma. But it also felt meaningful, important. The kids loved the music. They would perk up when he came into their rooms. They would sing along when they had the energy. They would just listen quietly when they did not. One little girl, about 6 years old with leukemia, reminded Marcus so much of Emma it hurt. She had the same dark curls, the same quick smile. Her name was Lily. She was shy at first, but after a few visits she started requesting songs. Then she asked if he could teach her to play. Marcus brought a small keyboard to her room and started giving her lessons right there, working around her IV lines and medical equipment. Lily was a fast learner, just like Emma had been. She loved music with the same pure joy Emma had shown. Teaching Lily was both the hardest and the most rewarding thing Marcus had done since Emma died. Every lesson made him miss his daughter with an intensity that took his breath away. But every lesson also felt like honoring her memory, like keeping a piece of her alive in the world. 6 months after the fundraiser, Marcus realized he had built something resembling a life again. He still worked at the accounting firm, but it was just a job now, not his whole identity. His real work, his real passion was music, teaching it, playing it, sharing it with people who needed it. He and Sarah started having people over for dinner again, something they had stopped doing after Emma died. They went to concerts and movies. They took walks in the park without crying. They laughed together, real laughter that came from genuine joy instead of just politeness. The grief was still there. It would always be there. Emma's absence was a permanent part of their lives, but it did not consume everything anymore. There was room now for other things too. Room for hope and connection and purpose. One evening, Marcus sat at his piano at home and played Emma's lullaby. He played it all the way through without crying, though his chest still ached with love and loss. When he finished, Sarah applauded softly from the doorway. "That was beautiful," she said. "I think I'm ready to write it down," Marcus said. "The lullaby. I want to preserve it properly, maybe even perform it someday with Emma's name on it, a piece written for her in memory of her." Sarah came and sat beside him on the bench. "She would love that," Marcus nodded. "I think she would. I think she'd love all of it. The teaching, the volunteering, the fact that I'm playing again. She always wanted me to share music with more people. You're doing that now. You're honoring her by living fully, by not letting fear win." Marcus turned and kissed Sarah's forehead. "We're doing it, both of us. We're finding our way back to life." That night, Marcus wrote down Emma's lullaby for the first time. He notated every note carefully, adding dynamics and expression marks. At the top, he wrote, "For Emma, my daughter, my inspiration, my heart." A year after the fundraiser, Marcus was asked to perform at it again. This time it was not just background music. Mrs. Patterson asked if he would do a featured performance, a 10-minute set in the middle of the evening. Special music to move people and inspire donations. Marcus said yes. The night of the performance, he was not nearly as nervous as he had been the year before. He knew what he was doing now. He knew the power music had to connect people, to help them feel and heal. He performed 3 pieces. A Chopin prelude he had worked hard to relearn, a jazz arrangement he had created himself, and finally Emma's lullaby. When he played the lullaby, the room fell silent just like it had the year before. People cried just like they had before. But this time Marcus did not cry. He played with strength and peace, celebrating his daughter's memory instead of drowning in grief. After the performance, during the standing ovation, Marcus looked out at the crowd. He saw his students and their families. He saw Lily from the hospital, now in remission, sitting with her parents and smiling at him. He saw Sarah with tears of pride on her face. He saw Mrs. Patterson beaming. He saw a room full of people who understood that life was hard and beautiful and worth living, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. Marcus stood and bowed, his scarred hands that had pulled his daughter from fire now making music again. His broken heart beating with purpose again. His life, which had felt over 3 years ago, blooming into something new and meaningful and good. He was told to play a simple piano tune, and in doing so he had found his way back to himself.